interval of time, which, man, I got through these quick, also discusses it. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. The me in whom you must believe is your consciousness. The I am, it is God. It is also the Father's house, containing within itself all conceivable states of consciousness. Every conditioned state of consciousness is called a mansion. The conversation takes place within yourself. Your I am, the unconditioned consciousness, is the Christ Jesus speaking to the conditioned self, or the John Smith consciousness. I am John, from a mystical point of view, is two beings, namely Christ and John. So I go to prepare a place for you, moving from your present state of consciousness into that state desired. It is a promise by your Christ or awareness of being to your present conception of yourself that you will leave your present consciousness and appropriate another. But I mean, this rant could have come in another 5 minutes, but it's going to come now. How different is your life from a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? I bet there's some people here that aren't even living in the same physical location they were a year ago. And most of you like, let's make it longer, let's make it 20 years. Do you live in the same house still? If there's like one or two people who, like still living in the same house you lived in 20 years ago and haven't lived anywhere else in the meantime, okay, cool. But most of the people watching this are going to be living physically somewhere different than they were 20 years ago. So don't tell me that the world is static. There are so many, basically everything in your life is different to how it was just yesterday. If you really examine it and look at it closely, the facts, the so-called facts of the world, are constantly shifting and changing. There are things you possess now, whether they're objects, they're qualities of yourself, they're a position you have in life, they're a relationship that is a primary part of your life, things that are very important and a central part of your life now that were not a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You didn't even, like, if it's a relationship, you didn't even know that person. If it's a job, you may never even heard of that company. So keep that in mind when you're imagining for something. You know, like, the facts of the world change. People make massive moves in their life all the time, and people definitely make, smaller moves that maybe you and your lack consciousness have made into a big thing. Like something like on the objective scale, something like $1,000 is really no amount of money. But you may be in a state right now where $1,000 is a lot of money. It's time for you to move into freer waters and be like, and see that that is something easy to come by, not something difficult to obtain. So, the one thing I always want to encourage people is don't limit yourself. And if you just look at the shape of your life, so many things in your life have already changed in massive ways. And if you go back to before that change occurred and could remember some of those thoughts and some of the state you were in then, you probably felt that it was so impossible for that thing to ever change in your life. But now it has, to the point that you totally take it for granted. When we're trying to catch the big fish, catch the mood, we're trying to catch those states where it's like, if you have a job now and it's been your job for like 3 or 4 years and it's just part of your identity now, well, there was a version of you 4 years ago that didn't have that job. Now you've got it. It's part of who you are. Well, if you're fishing for a new job, that's the state you want to aim for. The one where I've had this job for 4 years. It's what I do. It's my job. I work here. I make X amount of money a month or a year or a day, whatever your desire there is. My duties are this, and that. My days tend to go like this. I tend to interact with these people. I have these responsibilities and this specific title. You've already done it. You've already experienced it now. Now just take it and apply it to something else you'd like. Something you'd like to have instead of what you got now. Okay. Man is such a slave to time that if after he has appropriated a state of consciousness, which is not now seen by the world, and the appropriated state, does not immediately embody itself, he loses faith in his unseen claim. Forthwith he drops it and returns to his former static state of being. Because of this limitation of man, I have found it very helpful to employ a specific interval of time in making this journey into a prepared mansion. Wait but a little while. We have all catalogued the different days of the week, months of the year, and seasons. By this I mean you and I have said time and time again why today feels just like Sunday, or Monday, or Saturday. We have also said in the middle of summer why this feels and looks like the fall of the year. This is positive proof that you and I have definite feelings associated with these different days, months, and seasons of the year. Because of this association, we can at any time consciously dwell in that day or season which we have selected. Do not selfishly define this interval in days and hours because you are anxious to receive it, but simply remain in the conviction that it is done. Time, being purely relative, should be eliminated entirely, and your desire will be fulfilled. This ability to dwell at any point in time permits us to employ time in our travel into the desired mansion. I feel like for some people here, it seems like there is conflicting evidence. Because on one hand, you're told you can take the mood, whether if you have a certain mood you associate with a day of the week or certain activities you'd also be doing on that day, or obviously a season or a holiday or something like that. You can take those elements and add them into whatever you're imagining. At the same time, you're told don't pick a time based on you want it soon. Pick a little bit of time from now, but don't make it too soon, which is, and also disregard time entirely when you concoct the scene. I think what's going on here is Neville is trying to help people who are having issues with faithlessness by saying you can add time as a way to really reassure yourself and add in that element of certainty to what you've imagined. So, all right, so right now it's mid-January. We don't have any big holidays coming up, but it is pretty cold. You do kind of have that it's a new year sense in Januaries. There might be some other things during this time of year that are occurring for you, like maybe other people's birthdays or any sort of like things you do every January. It's like New Year's type of rituals. Certainly the weather is colder. You can take those elements and bake it into whatever scene you're doing. But the idea is that when you're imagining, for the most part, you're like, whatever time you're going to pick, it's now. I talked about this either last stream or stream before, where Neville was talking about being in Los Angeles, imagining he's in New York. When he's imagining he's in New York, he's in New York. So if you pick a period of time, if you pick, well, I know what February feels like, so I'm going to decide that this thing's going to happen to me in February, and so you bake that element into your scene, into your imaginal act. When you imagine that, it's February. In that hour of prayer, in that time when you are really sinking into this feeling, whether your eyes are open or closed, or you're driving or walking down the street, or you're laying in your bed with all the lights out, whatever you're doing, when you're doing that, it's February in that moment of time. And your consciousness, the time you're in, is February, if you're going to include time in your scenes. But you don't have to, because the point is, whatever you imagine for, it's happening now. Now is when this thing happens. Now is when you claim the state. This ability to dwell at any point in time permits us to employ time in our travel into the desired mansion. Now I, consciousness, go to a point in time and there prepare a place. If I go to such a point in time and prepare a place, I shall return to this point in time where I have left, and I shall pick up and take you with me into that place which I have prepared, that where I am, there ye may be also. Let me give you an example of this travel. Suppose you have an intense desire. Like most men who are enslaved by time, you might feel that you could not possibly realize so large a desire in a limited interval. But admitting that all things are possible to God, believing God to be the me within you, or your consciousness of being, you can say, as John, I can do nothing. But since all things are possible to God, and God I know to be my consciousness of being, I can realize my desire in a little while. How my desire will be realized, I do not as John know, but by the very law of my being, I do know that it shall be. With this belief firmly established, decide what would be a relative rational interval of time in which such a desire could be realized. Again, let me remind you not to shorten the interval of time because you are anxious to receive your desire. Make it a natural interval. No one can give you the time interval. Only you can say what the natural interval would be to you. The interval of time is relative. That is, no two individuals would give the same measurement of time for the realization of their desire. This next thing I think is one of Neville's best quotes about time. Time is ever conditioned by man's conception of himself. Confidence in yourself, as determined by the conditioned consciousness, always shortens the interval of time. So, okay, let's take two people who want to have an actual mansion. There's two people, they both have desires for different mansions because mansions are specific, right? But there's two people and they both want mansions. And one person they've manifested a ton of things. They've already manifested crazy stuff, like actual miracles, basically whatever material objects they want. A totally easy life. All the relationships they want are in an ideal condition, Basically, their life is perfect, and they manifested a lot of things for other people and for the world at large, and they're extremely happy and content all the time. They're in a really great state. They know the law works, and so one day they wake up. They're like, "I really want a mansion," and to them, it feels quite possible to have a mansion before the end of the week. And they've done a lot of scenes and been able to bake this thing of time into it. They've pretty much mastered it. So say it's a Monday, they feel it's a Monday. They can close their eyes, feel it's Friday, and they've got the mansion Friday the same week. And that manifests for them. Now you got another person who really has only manifested a couple things. Doesn't have, they know the law works, but they don't believe it absolutely. They really haven't bought what Neville calls the pearl of great price, which is they don't believe that their imagination is the only force of power. They still believe there are other things which could interfere in them receiving their desires and experiencing that which they've selected. And there's still a lot of things that they haven't manifested yet and feel like maybe I can't manifest this. Maybe some of their relationships are in the right spot, but another part of their life is like lacking. Maybe there's a best friend they haven't talked to in 5 years and they feel like, I'm really missing that relationship in my life. Maybe they have a job they like, but it's not paying the amount of money they want. And so related to that, they think, well, I'm not even in the financial position I want to be in right now. I don't even think I could afford a mansion, but you know what? Let me do it anyway. Let me imagine it anyway. And then based on that money one, they might say, well, geez, it's going to take me 10 years to afford a mansion. I don't even know what 10 years feels like, but, 10 years from now, I'll have a certain look. I'll certainly have some gray hairs. So let me put myself into that mansion, but it's 10 years from now. And so they devise that scene, and it does manifest for them, but it manifests 10 years later. That same person, this latter example, had they in that moment said, you know what, I'm going to really go for this. I'm in this moment going to believe in myself. Let's get this mansion by Friday. And they really stayed true to that. And they really did imagine Friday and stayed true to that. I do think they could have that mansion by Friday. If they really captured also in their consciousness that confidence in themselves, in the Father, in the imaginative process. So yeah, that's a little bit of my diatribe there. At the same time, my experience of time has been, A, I have a vague sense of time, and B, I have no idea why things pop or manifest when they do, for the most part. There's been very few things where I have been able to tie it to a sense of time. For the most part, things just seem to show up randomly. And they definitely don't, because there's this one really crappy assumption out there that if you've come across this before, like if you're someone who has come at this from a law of attraction space, please, please, please let go of this assumption. There's an assumption that you need to be happy or in a high vibration in order to manifest anything, which is stupid, which is so stupid. You don't. I have had manifestations occur on days when I'm feeling awful, and it's literally things that I consciously visualized, wrote in my books, had affirmations about, and they would just pop at times in the day when I felt awful, and then they would manifest. I wasn't thinking about them; they just showed up, and it had no relationship to my vibration or my overall mood that day. So don't limit yourself based on that, because that assumption will also express. If you think you have to feel good to have anything you want show up in your life, that's going to become true for you. So be very careful about that assumption. Things show up whenever, all the time. You're like, now, of course, I realize that I could adjust that and say, well, I am very good at manifesting on a time schedule. But so far, I'm still moving into that consciousness. This, for me, is still a process. And having a strong sense of time is also still a process, and kind of one that I'm not sure if I even want to really go that route, because I kind of like not having a sense of time, if that makes sense. I kind of like everything just being like now, and there's little moods to it, like seasons and holidays and times of the day, but I don't have this very firm grasp of time. Like, I'm kind of okay with that. And that's my conception of myself. You, if you're someone who's very regimented, have a very shrewd sense of time, I bet you will find very quickly that you can manifest things at a certain time, even at a specific time on the clock, if you have that keen of a sense of time. Okay, if you were accustomed to great accomplishments, you would give yourself a much shorter interval in which to accomplish your desire than the man schooled in defeat. If today were Wednesday and you decided that it would be quite possible for your desire to embody a new realization of yourself by Sunday, then Sunday becomes the point in time that you would visit. To make this visit, you shut out Wednesday and let in Sunday. That is accomplished by simply feeling that it is Sunday. Begin to hear the church bells, begin to feel the quietness of the day, and all that Sunday means to you. Actually feel that it is Sunday. When this is accomplished, feel the joy of having received that which on Wednesday was but a desire. Feel the complete thrill of having received it, and then return to Wednesday, the point in time you left behind you. In doing this, you created a vacuum in consciousness by moving from Wednesday to Sunday. Nature, abhorring vacuums, rushes in to fill it, thereby fashioning a mold in the likeness of that which you potentially create, namely the joy of having realized your defined desire. As you return to Wednesday, you will be filled with a joyful expectancy, because you have established a consciousness of that which must take place the following Sunday. As you walk through the interval of Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, nothing disturbs you regardless of conditions, because you predetermined that which you would be on the Sabbath, and that remains an unalterable conviction. Having gone before and prepared the place, you have returned to John, and are now taking him with you through the interval of 3 days, to the prepared place, that he might share your joy with you. For where I am, there you may also be. My friend Monica, which Hopefully, some way she'll get to watch these. She has had success with time-based manifestations, and her specific advice to me, because this was the pattern she noticed with hers, was that she had success where things showed up in her awareness with a time interval already defined. So if it was an event that, when she became aware of it, when someone told her about it, already had a date assigned to it, that's already baked into it. So if the thing's gonna happen on a certain day, she's got to manifest it to be on that day. So that was how she was able to marry time to the manifestation, because the conception of it arrived with the time. The thing, I just came up with a practical one that people could try. If you're someone who receives a paycheck on a specific day and in a specific way, like you say, you still get a paper check. Like, I can remember what that feeling is like when it's a Friday and you get that check. When it's a Friday evening and you've worked all week and you get that check, you can tap that feeling, tap that experience, and make that check a little bigger. If there's a raise you've been wanting, you feel you haven't gotten, go into your imagination. It's Friday, you're holding the check in your hand, and the amount that you want more on that check is now there, reflected on the balance for the week. See how that unfolds for you. It'll be interesting, because some people, I think, will get a raise or will get some kind of bonus. Other people might end up having to work extra hours. I'm just saying, I'm just warning you. There is a risk there, but I think for the most part, you will get the raise or you'll get some kind of bonus. But the more masochistic of you are going to work more. I guarantee it. Some other ones that people try a lot is birthdays and holidays. And I think if you're new to manifesting, I mostly wouldn't advise that until you have a very firm confidence in your imagination, because it can lead to a lot of disappointment-based experiences that are just going to set you back. Because what will happen is, if you have no real confidence in this process and no real confidence in yourself as a person right now, and you imagine for something to happen on your birthday, when it doesn't happen, you're going to beat yourself up. If that's the state of consciousness you're starting from, of like feeling like these things aren't possible to you and nothing really goes right for you, and you try this and then it doesn't happen on that birthday, like, it's going to set you back, and it's going to set you back quite a lot. So those kind of things I wouldn't necessarily advise. I think taking little simple things and tying manifestations to those might be a little bit easier. Like, if you have certain rituals, certain days of the week, you can take any one of your manifestations and tie it to that sort of ritual that appears at that time of day for you, or that kind of, that. I'm just trying to think of like morning coffee on certain days of the week feels a little bit different. Like, that sort of Monday morning coffee has a different feel than having coffee at a cafe on a Saturday. And there's a different time feel to that as well. So you can try baking those things into your different manifestations. All right, so I think and we're gonna wrap. I guess we're gonna wrap up early, because I didn't think I would get through these chapters this quickly. I'm trying to remember if I have any other. And by the way, if you guys have if anyone here is watching has any questions, has any comments you want to make, please let me know. I would suggest, as the exercise this week, is try one time-based manifestation. And it can be as big or as small as you want it to be. I would and you could even try with things that you think you don't have power over. So let's say you watch and someone can try this exact specifics of this exercise and let me know how it goes for you. So you can always tell me the results of your exercises by emailing imaginationstream@gmail.com. But so if you have a show you watch every week at a certain time, because that's definitely time bound, and you watch it every week as it airs, pick the topic or a plot or a character's name in the show that week, and know that you're watching this week's show, not next week's show. So today's Saturday, your show comes on Tuesday nights, skip ahead to Tuesday. you're watching the show, and put something into the show that would be unusual to be in the show. Like, let's say they have a new side character show up, and give them a silly name like Gus. And imagine a scene of Gus in the show with the other characters that you know, their main characters, and see if that shows up for you. I mean, I bet it will, because I've had those kind of things happen. Sometimes too, what happens there is, if you're gonna manifest that, you'll get shown like a clip of it, like not tied to the time. So you might get like a clip recommended on YouTube, like, oh, Gus was actually on the show like 2 years ago. So things like that can happen too. But if someone out there has like still watch broadcast TV and you have a favorite show, try that. Or you can do it with a specific line of dialogue. Pick your favorite character in the show, write them one line of dialogue, and imagine them saying it over and over, and you're watching the show on a specific night, and see if they say it. I'm pretty interested to hear if anyone tries that and how it turns out for you. But in general, try doing some time-based manifesting, picking certain things to pop for you on specific days, specific hours of the day, and see how that goes.